What's going on, everybody? I'm Jeff Carpenter with Readylight Media and Next Level Workshops, and I'm here in my studio. And big thanks to Adorama and Capture One for having me on here. I'm very excited to talk about headshots, and we're just going to basically do a live shoot. And obviously, this is a Capture One class, and I've got a Capture One hat, so it's official. But what I'm going to do is I've got my buddy Jordan here. He needs some new headshots. He is an EDM DJ. Is that what you call it? Okay. See, I listen sometimes. So basically, he needs some promotional stuff. We're just going to kind of do a live shoot, showcase kind of the program, and also just kind of, maybe some tips and tricks along the way that can get you, get you on your way to taking some great headshots. So I've got us, set up here, but I want to kind of run through the basics and the very beginnings of kind of like, if you've never used Capture One before, I want to show you how to do it. I don't want to bore the people that use it, but I want to kind of show, how I start a program, why I use it, all of that stuff. So basically, I'm going to share my screen here. And I'm going to start a new session. I have a session already. And actually, if you jump into the live chat, I believe we've pinned a link to to Capture One Live, and I'll kind of go through that in a little bit, but that'll kind of showcase all of the images that we take will show up as I'm shooting. But what I want to do is I want to kind of just start a new session, and here we can kind of see that it's untitled session. Let's call it a test session for now, right? You can name this whatever you want, whatever whatever you're photographing. Usually I'll do date, name, headshot, whatever. You can name this whatever you want, but you can also kind of see that there are subfolders here. So what the cool thing about Capture One is it actually allows you to, it doesn't allow you, it actually just creates them for you. It creates these subfolders. So basically it already has a capture folder. Every photo that I take it default goes to capture folder. You can send stuff to a selects folder. So that's kind of already segmented out for you. It has an output, so if you output, any of the output recipes will automatically end up in this output folder, which is really great because you don't have to go searching for where it is. I know a lot of programs, they just kind of like default go to your pictures folder or something like that. In this one, it literally just like every session you have, it sends it to this output folder. So, and then trash, if you throw something away, it doesn't actually delete it. It actually sends it to the trash folder. And then any of the capture name, you can set this to whatever you want. But another cool thing about this is, let's say you have a template, like where you have certain output recipes, or you want to have, for instance, I use headshot tools for a lot of my volume headshot work. So I've got a headshot tools recipe, or a template rather, that actually just gives me the ability, it puts all of that stuff so I don't have to type it in every single time. Like they use clipboard contents as a naming feature to send the photos to your client. I don't want to get too much into that, but you can create templates within Capture One depending on the type of shoot or the type of project that you're working on. So that's just starting the program. I don't want to actually start this one because I want to go into the one that I've already got. So we just took a couple test shots here. But basically what we have here now, we're in the program. There's a lot here, right? There's more than I even know about. There's people that know a lot more about this, but I want to show you kind of what I use, like what I do, and actually where it kind of gets me to where I need to go, right? So obviously the cool thing about Capture One, and really the main reason why I switched over to Capture One in the first place from Lightroom, was that I tethered, and it was kind of a nightmare tethering in Lightroom. So that was my kind of catalyst for making the jump over. Once I got there, I was like, oh, there's like a million things this program can do, and we're going to go through a very small fraction of those, which is still a lot. So notice that my camera, I opened it up right here in the top left corner. You can see my camera already plugged in. I'm going to unplug it so we can kind of see. So right there, it says connect your camera. I don't have to do anything other than actually just plug my camera in to get it to show up. So it's already there. I'm ready to go. I can start shooting. I have all my camera controls in here. I'm going to take a card out because there's something called recapture, I think is what it's called, where it allows you to unplug your camera, take some shots, and then it basically dumps the cards that were on your, like, photos on your card back into Capture One. I don't actually want to do that, so to make it easy, I unplugged my SD card because it basically just duplicated my photos here. So I don't want that, but luckily I only took 2, so I didn't have to like sit there and load them in. But yeah, you've got all of your camera functionality right here within this, shows you all the metadata, all that stuff. Right here, you've got next capture naming. So really, you don't have to go through and do much with this. It's already kind of comes default with with what I think is really, really easy to use interface. So what I do want to talk about though is next capture adjustments down here, right? So notice that actually before I get there, capture location here. Notice I said earlier defaults to the capture folder. If for some reason you choose to have it in a different location, you can change where it goes. I just think it makes a lot more sense to have it in your capture folder. But basically, you've got all of these things. What I want to talk about is under this other category and copy from last. So basically, what happens is, let's say I make adjustments here, right? So let's jump over from the tether tab. So we were in the tether tab. Let's jump over to the adjust tab. And you can move these around however you want. If you want things to like look differently, if you want your panel to be on the right and not the left, you can change your workspace altogether. If you are coming from Lightroom, this migration tab is actually going to be, it's going to kind of look a lot like Lightroom if that's kind of one of the things that's kind of you're shying away from. I personally like the default workspace, so we're just going to go with that one. And sorry, now we're in the adjust tab, right? So let's say we want to go through, and one of the cool things about Capture One now is they have a ton of, AIs everywhere, right? So Capture One, they're leaning into that. They're giving us some, functionality that's really, really great. That is really, really easy to do. So let's go ahead and I'm going to go layers and mask. I'm just going to click on. So by default, it has subject mask, background mask, and then it's a new one here. It has people mask. If you click on this, it has a bunch of little, checkboxes you can toggle on and off. And basically what this is going to do is just mask out this specific area. So I like to do pupil and iris and create mask for that. So the reason why I want to do that is if I kind of zoom in a little bit here and I click M, which is the default mask, it kind of just shows you the mask in red. It'll basically show you where the mask is. And now it's not perfect every time, but it's AI, so it's always learning. It's always pretty darn good. So let's click on that, and I can go ahead and let's go up here. Let's just sharpen the eyes a little bit. So that's just going to sharpen just that mask. I'm just going to do this real quick so we can kind of just like see it in action. Let's go back into, also sharpen was in refine, not adjust, just as a quick clarification there. And then let's go just brightness a little bit here. Let's just brighten it up. I don't want to do too much. Like anything with editing, I think less is more. You never want to go over the top with anything. So let's do that. Now let's also take the sclera here. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that properly, but the white part of the eye, that's what that is. Let's create that mask, and let's go ahead and just bring the saturation down a tiny bit, brightness up a little bit. So now if I do before and after, you can kind of just see the eyes a little bit brighter. It's nothing crazy. I don't need to do this. But the cool thing about this now is, sort of, actually pop up in here. I'm going to switch around and I'm going to go back here, make sure that my next capture adjustment is indeed copy from last, because what that's going to do now is that's going to take 1 itty-bitty step to your left. Right there, perfect. So what that's going to do is automatically going to why is the word not coming to me? It's going to copy all those adjustments. So if I go back in here into the adjust tab, I've got these adjustments already there. Now, one thing that's really cool that I love doing with Capture One specifically, well, in here is the background adjustment. So let's click background adjustment. So I'm shooting this just on a white wall, right? So I've got just a white wall there. Just because of the inverse square law and the fall off of my key light here, it's turning a little bit gray. With enough room, I've moved far enough back, I could turn that white wall black, just because this light from this key light eventually would not reach there. So just my lighting setup very quickly. I've got key light here. It's Profoto B10X Plus with a 4-foot octa, and then just two 1x4 strips with some grids. And the reason I have the grids on there is because I've got a lot of white walls here. So I don't want light from, basically grids just kind of narrow your beam of light, right? So by having the grid on there, it's going to kind of prevent any unwanted spill from any of these lights over here. So what I'm going to do is I selected the background mask. If I click M, that's going to just mask it out. And it does a really darn good job. Even if with people with kind of flowing hair, the background mask is incredible. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just change the Kelvin value a little bit. So now, whoa, look at that. We've got a blue background, right? So just as an example, now as I take this photo, so I'm just going to take kind of a handful of photos here. So as you hear the beep, you can kind of move around a little bit. And so every photo that I'm taking now has those features built in, and it's pretty quick too. It's not like I'm sitting here waiting for a minute for every photo. So, and I can change that to anything. If I want to kind of just like, now that I'm doing this one, make sure you have your mask selected. I just move the tint value, and then he turned super magenta. I don't want to do that. So let's just say, okay, let's go. We like this color a little bit better, right? So now, as I take these other photos, it's going to basically, again, where you've got copy from last selected in our next capture adjustments, which is over here in the Tether tab. So we've got copy from last. So basically what that's doing is now everything, and also it's not just the background that's changing. We now have this, his eyes are sharpened. The whites are a little bit, brighter too. So all of those features that I had in there, or all of those layers, I'm now getting every shot, and I'm not having to go and paint that in. So basically the AI engine here is just taking that, it's reading the image, and then it's just kind of providing me with this thing. So let's say I'm like way back here, and I actually like this lighter blue background. I can go up here, I can do copy, and I can go back here, and then right there. And now we've basically just copied it from another one. So that's just kind of copy and pasting, but allowing us to, we can undo that if we don't want to. So that's just a quick, nice little feature. Using a white background, yes, I do have some backgrounds up there, and we'll probably use those in a little bit, but having this ability to change out the background really quick, specifically in a headshot environment. So you might ask why you would do that. So in this case, maybe not, for him specifically, but let's say you're shooting with a realtor or something like that. They've got specific brand colors. With this, you can shoot on kind of a neutral gray, and you can dial in exactly what color you want after the fact too. So, or, it can be used as kind of an upsell technique where you're like, oh, I'm going to shoot you with we'll shoot you with the gray like this, but I'm also going to, for free or for a discount, whatever, however you want to, present that to your client, you can also be like, oh, well, I'll give you a different color or multiple color options. And basically that's just upselling them. And all I did was click a little checkbox here, right? So that's just one feature that, gets me to where I'm going a lot quicker, a lot easier than going in, bringing it into another program, masking it out every single time. I'm able to kind of do this, and all of these layers are happening in real time, which I absolutely love. So another thing that I want to talk about really quickly is headshots. A lot of times you have a specific crop that you need to kind of abide by. Let's say your client is like, oh, it needs to be head and shoulders here. You know, like let's say a passport's a great example. You know, they have like, it needs to be exactly this, you know, whatever it may be. With this, you've got, so something called AI crop. So what I can do is I can go in, I can crop to exactly where I want this to be. So let's say that's the crop we need, right? What I can do is I can right click. I'm in the crop. How do I get rid of this? My Zoom. There we go. Let me just come down here. So if I'm in the crop function here and I right click, there's something that says set as reference in a little AI crop little box down here. If I say set as reference, and then I come back over here to Tether and I go, notice that AI crop is checked right here. So my next capture, I can be anywhere I want. So I'm shooting this at basically it's right below his waist, right? As I'm shooting this, it's gonna basically give me that new crop every single time. So now I can zoom in, I can zoom out as long as I don't cut the top of his head off. It will give me that, it'll give me that crop every single time. This is a really, really handy feature to have if you are shooting kind of a volume type headshot where you've got a lot of people you're photographing and you want to keep that consistency across the board. Having this AI crop feature is actually really, really cool because you don't have to go in and do that after the fact. One thing that, you know, my goal as a photographer and as a commercial photographer, a headshot photographer, is I want to be able to give my client something as quickly as possible, whether it's a final image, whether it's the proofing gallery, whatever that may be. My goal is to get them images as fast as possible. So that being said, we've pinned a Capture One live gallery at the top. If you haven't clicked on that, you should be able to follow along and see all of these images that we're taking coming in with that. If enough people log in, it might not let you. I think there's a limit of like 150 or something like that. So if for some reason we've got that many people clicking on that link, you might not be able to get in, but keep clicking on it, keep trying. Somebody might hop out. But so Capture One Live is really, really cool. So it's a feature that came out a few versions ago. And what it does is it actually literally just gives you the ability to provide a real-time proofing gallery to your clients. So right now, I didn't give access. I just gave viewing access. You can literally change as much as you want. So I'm going to come up here into the Share Online tool here. And I can do share, manage access, whatever. I already did that. So basically anyone with this link can just view the photos. I can give people access to rate them, to comment on them. So you might ask why you would use this. So let's say you have a client that you're photographing someone at an office, like a satellite office that's local to where you are, but the client who actually has full say in everything is based in New York or California or something like that. This is a great way. You can share this link with them. They can kind of basically tune in, kind of like you guys are right now, to a live shoot, and they can make comments or, you know, critique or rate photos or color tag photos as they're coming in real time. And then the link stays up for, I think, a month or something like that. So that's a really, really cool feature. And it's something that I love to kind of share when I'm doing classes like this, just to kind of show you the functionality of it. So I can actually, just for fun, let's do, okay. Apparently I cannot, oh wait, never mind, manage access. Anyone with the link, let's just say can rate, tag, and comment. Let's do that. Let's just make sure that all works. I'm just gonna click on it, make sure it's up in there. I'll log in because I have a password here. You should be able to look at it without a password, but I do have an account, so I'll just go ahead and okay. So the link is used to track the number of users. That means that everybody's looking at it. So sorry if you joined late and you can't see it. Anyway, let's just get out of there. So now anyone in there, okay. So yeah, so people are kind of making some tags and some ratings. So that's a really cool feature that I actually love because it really encourages collaboration no matter where you are. Now, when I'm actually shooting in my studio, a lot of times it's kind of a one-off thing. I've actually got an iPad here, and I use a program called Capture Pilot, which is basically the same thing, but it sends it to an iPad. You have to be on the same network. So let's go ahead and go back into. All right, let's go into here. All right. So we're going to kind of exit out of all these. Notice there is no Capture Pilot little toggle here. So what we have to do is we have to go search for that tool. So basically, I'm just going to right click. I'm going to add tool, and I'm going to go up here to Capture Pilot. And this gives me the ability to only do it on mobile. So there's a mobile app. So I have it already on my iPad. So that allows me to just have my iPad ready to go. And this just allows my client, or in this case, Jordan, to look at the photos as they're coming in, similar to how you guys are, but it's just on the iPad here in the studio. So I'll just, you can go through. Basically, it gives you the same thing on web and mobile. So basically, the mobile gives you a little more functionality. There is in-app purchases you can do if you want, where you can, trigger the camera, stuff like that. I don't have that. So basically, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do basic. I'm just going to say start server. And if we come over here, I'll take this off for a second. And I'm actually going to switch to this one here. All right, so hopefully you can see this. So basically, all of the photos that we've taken are on here. I just said there's a server list. I said, great, click on that. And same thing for him. He can click on here. He can rate images. He can do all of that stuff on this iPad. So this is kind of something that I like it when my client sees my photos, because it kind of is a little peace of mind for me, right? I know that they know that what they're getting. It's I don't ever want to leave a shoot or have them leave my studio and me wonder if they were happy with the photos I took. So by showing them, by tethering into my computer, having them on the iPad, having them on live, you don't have to do all that extra stuff. I just kind of like having my station and he's got his station over there. That allows you to just kind of have some peace of mind, honestly, just where I know that I'm providing a product or a service that they're happy with, because they're the client, right? They're the ones that are paying me to take their photograph, right? So I want to make sure that they're happy. Yeah, there's some, collaborative shoots you can do and stuff like that, where it might be like, hey, I'm doing this. If we can kind of bounce ideas off each other. But in this case, let's just say he's a client. He's come in. He needs shots for a very specific reason. I am then going to provide exactly what he needs. And by showing him the iPad or showing him, what I'm taking, that just helps speed up the process. I don't find myself needing to shoot, photos for half an hour where I might have got them in the first 5 or 10 frames, because I feel like that's, he's getting what he's paying for. Really what they're paying for is the one image that they need, right? Or the, few or handful of images. They're not paying for you wasting their time, right? So that's where having it where it comes up on the iPad, on the computer, on the live session, anything like that, where you have the ability to just show your client what it is that you're taking. So let's see here. Oh shoot. Let's see. Back to meeting. How do I do this? Where did it go? All right. All right. Let's see. I want to make sure that. All right. Okay. I want to make sure that I was still. Yeah. Sorry. It wasn't showing the Zoom, so I wanted to make sure that uh it would still work. Sorry about that. That was me and my technologically inability to do things. No, like the Zoom, like it was there, but it wasn't there. So I just wanted to make sure it was indeed there. But anyway, yeah. So again, if you guys have questions, leave those in the chat. I will try and get to them as I'm going, because typically questions they make a little more sense as if you ask a question about something I'm doing right here, I don't want to wait till the end. So go ahead and drop your questions in the chat. We'll answer those as we go. So, and that being said, if anybody has questions, let me know. I'm a very, bounce off the audience kind of guy. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get a few more shots of Jordan, make sure that we've got, everything that we need for that. And then I just want to go ahead and do a few more looks, just kind of get through a few different setups, because it is sponsored by Capture One, but it's a headshot class. So I want to kind of get through, show you some of my favorite setups, stuff like that. So one of my favorites, as we have it, just because that's when I started with, was is basically just I like butterfly light. It's a nice, easy, simple go-to. You don't have, there's little room for error. We'll just say that. And it's a little more flattering, I think. Not flattering necessarily, but it's a little more, has a little more punch, a little more contrast than just straight flat light. So just to kind of run through that, I want to kind of run through just some very, very quick lighting basics, because you can't have a photograph without light. So let's go ahead and just run through that really quickly. So basically, I mentioned inverse square law a little bit before. So this white background, I want to go ahead and reset this image here. So this background here, if I take this, is a gray background, but it's on a white wall, right? The reason for that is basically I've got this light positioned and also Jordan positioned in a way that is basically allowing this light to hit him, and it's falling off, not completely, because it's still hitting the wall, but it's not, it's not a white background, right? So just because it's a white wall doesn't mean it has to be a white background. There are a couple ways that we could essentially make that darker or lighter. If I bring him in a little bit closer, so come in just a touch closer, even close, like right up underneath that thing, like even closer. One more. All right, so realistically, if I don't change this light at all, it's going to be overexposed, right? So if I take this shot, we now have an overexposed face, right? So we can meter again. Right underneath the chin there. And I'll just pop that real quick. Look at the number. So I'm at 5.6 on my camera. It is 5.67 on the meter there. So what I want to do here is just showcase. All right. So if I go up 7/10 of a stop on here, now in theory, if I meter that again, it should. Oh wait, I did that wrong. I went backwards. Now I got to go down 14. Let's just start over. There we go. I only had 2 cups of coffee today, and it's all right. What is this? Right, cool. Now that should do it. All right. All righty. So now, if I take this photo, granted, one thing, he's right up underneath that light, and he's also got a hat on, so it's going to make it kind of dark, but it actually has kind of a cool look, if I'm being honest. So in a situation like this, I might have him just raise his chin ever so slightly, like not a ton, maybe not even that far. Just, yeah, right there. Perfect. So now we've got a little bit more, where it's hitting more of his face, but I honestly kind of like the background there. But what do we notice between this shot and this shot here? So we now have a slightly, not a ton, because he only moved, 2 feet or so. We've now got a slightly darker background. And notice that the crop is exactly the same because I still got that AI crop. And if I come here, really the crop of this is, let's see, I want to reset. Cool. All right. So now the crop is actually, that's what the crop is. The nice thing about the AI crop too is if I'm over here and I kind of, let's say I've got a little bit like off to the side. Let's actually do yes. So basically with that one, it did the same crop, but if you look at the original image here, it's actually, I don't know if anybody can hear that. My dog is really trying to get inside. So off to the left here, we've got, I basically extended beyond the background. Just with the AI crop, it obviously it's not extending the background with AI or anything. It's kind of taking a lot of the guesswork out of that. But let's go ahead and let's put you back kind of where we were there. Let's do this one more time. And go and just tell me what the last number is. It's like the 40 of that one. 4.0.2. Let's do. It's okay, so I'll let it slide. All right. Now, typically when I'm shooting when I've got kicker lights like this, I'll meter the back, like the key light, and I'll kind of just go to taste on the kicker. Honestly, I'm not usually metering the kicker or the rim lights, whatever you want to call them. Basically, the strip lights back there. If I turn this, I did basically exactly what I always tell people not to do, which is turn all your lights on and just start shooting. But I had them set up already before. But typically, what I would do is I would do the key light here, and then I would basically do the background lights. I've got them on separate channels. But now we have it's just kicker lights there. It's only, so notice that background is black in that photo. It is not a white background. It is indeed a black background, but it is a white wall. So that's where all of that means that all of the exposure on this shot, all of the exposure on the background is being provided by this key light here. So that's just a quick little inverse square law. All right. As far as where I have them placed on a height level, it's a headshot, so I've got him a little bit higher, and that's just going to wrap around him really nicely. So we can see it's just starting to create edge. Look straight at me for one. All right. So I still have that key light off, so I can go ahead and turn that back on. Now that I know what the rim lights are doing. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and move things around a little bit. Do you want to go ahead and switch to different outfit real quick? All right, so we're just going to go ahead and kind of play around with a few different looks here. Nothing too crazy. But I'm going to move this guy. So again, if you have questions, go ahead and drop those into the chat. I would love to kind of get those in while I'm just gonna crank, and it's gonna be. I mean, it doesn't get loud when you crank down. It's just the up. All right. So I'm just moving this off to the side a little bit. I just want to create a little bit different of a light pattern, and I'm also going to turn off. I've got, so when I'm shooting in a studio or really anywhere and I've got multiple lights, I like to organize my lights in a way that basically, this is my key light. So this is going to be A, B, C. You might have it where it's I use Profoto. So that's basically I'm on channel 1 here, and I've got my groups are A group, B group, C group. So that way everything can be, individually. In the last shot, I was basically using both of those at the same power. But I kind of had I knew that I was going to eventually want to turn off one of them. So let's go ahead and I'm going to bring you in a little closer. So come take one step for me. Right there, perfect. All right. Let my dogs in and see whether they bark at Jordan or not. So, all right, go inside. Raven's gonna come say hi. All right. All right, go inside. Go inside. I'll shut that. One of the lovely things about a home studio is you get puppies. So I mean, not always. It doesn't come with the studio, but I'm going to angle this just a little bit up here. So if I have this kind of off the side, now we can all kind of just assume that this is going to then create a, it's going to be a little more side-lit. It's not going to be the same light pattern. Now, in that case, I didn't remeter. I moved the light down, which means it's closer to him, and I told him to take a step forward. Now, you could use TTL, which essentially would get you, it basically is auto for your camera. All right, what's the last number say?
5.69.
5.69. All right, so that means I'm at 5.6 on my camera, so I need to go down almost a full stop. I'm going to go down to 5.8, and that should now give me the correct exposure. Wonderful. All right, cool. So now what I want to do is I want to actually add in a little bit more, make the rim light a little more prominent. I've got that rim light over there. Basically, my group C out of the, it is not doing anything. I've got it off. So I've got Profoto A2s in these backlights with the adapter that allows me to stick the gel on there really easily. So I just been able to warm this up a little bit. And one thing with when you're placing your rim lights, I'm going to turn this key light off really quick. I just want to have my rim light on. And what I want to do is I just want to see kind of what this rim light's doing. So it's not really doing a whole lot right here, right? I mean, it is, but it's not, it's a little warmer now. I've got some wiggle room here. I'm going to go up 2 stops on that. Now with this, it's kind of a little bit more, I can have some wiggle room on the, what is the correct exposure for a kicker light, right? With this one, because it's not like your standard corporate headshot, I'm going to kind of play around with it. I'm going to go a little brighter than I normally would. And another thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to tell him, and I might move this over based on his preference, because again, he is the client. So right now, this is obviously your key light, right? So if you look that way, it's only light in the back of your head. So either I can move this around if that's kind of your preference, or I can or if you just want to face this way, that would be a lot easier. All right. Exactly. All right. So I metered that at 5.6. I'm gonna come down just a touch here, and I'm actually going to. All right, so I'm liking that. So basically, now we have, obviously, he's not really looking at the camera, so it's technically not a headshot. That's neither here nor there, honestly. I kind of like that angle a little bit that way, but then just like eyes back at me, though. So just, yeah, perfect, just like that. Sweet. So, and I might even come around on the side, do a little more almost split light. Because with this size of this modifier, so this is a 4-foot octa, it's going to basically kind of wrap around him with the size of the modifier. So we can kind of, you don't have to be as precise with the placement of the light as you might be with like a snoot or something like that, where it's like, it needs to be exactly where it is, right? So let's bring this up. So the reason why I added I think I did a half CTO gel in that background or in the kicker light, just I wanted it to kind of match up with his outfit. So basically his outfit was a little bit, it's got a little bit of kind of, what color would that be? Like a mustardy color, kind of?
Like a beige brown.
Like a beige or something like that in his shirt. So I kind of wanted to match that a little bit. You could go the opposite direction where it's literally like you go blue and it kind of gives you that cool tone, that kind of cool vibe. But like it's kind of a tropical looking shirt. So having a cool kicker doesn't really make sense because that, in my mind, instills like winter, right? So he's wearing a tropical looking shirt. Having an orange kicker makes a lot more sense. So let's go ahead and bring this one over here. I would normally have a B-class sitting over there, but I have this light also sitting here. So I'm going to use this as my fill. And I'm just going to leave the grid on there. And let's go ahead and turn this one on. I'm going to turn all my other lights. Every time I add a new light, I want to turn my other lights off, and that basically will give me let me know what that light's doing. Because I just kind of threw it up there. I don't know where it is as far as like placement wise. So I think that's pretty good. Keep looking this way though for me, just because that's basically going to be your. That's still. Let's bring this around the front a little bit. Basically, all this is doing is just kind of reducing some of the shadow on the right side of his face. So now I can kind of just turn everything back on. All right, cool. And it might be where I'm like, oh, I actually don't like that, which I don't, honestly. So I don't mind it. He looks great. I think it's a little bit too flat, realistically. I think it could work depending on what you need it for. Another thing we want to look at is catch lights here, right? It doesn't necessarily need to be like a natural looking catch light. It's in a studio. We're not going to have a natural looking catch light every single time. But I think I might just bring the power of this down. The nice thing about using a strobe or a light as your fill light is it gives you the ability to have complete control of that. If I use a reflector or something like that, the only control I have with how much light is being kicked back is the proximity to him. So if I want a ton, I'm going to have that right up next to his face. It still does the same thing. So in a pinch, you can just use a piece of white paper or something like that. It would still do the job. But in this case, I like that a lot better, right? So another cool thing is we can go ahead and just like swap out. Actually, not use the. I want to get a little bit more. I want to actually have this in frame. Almost give you the illusion of the sun or something. I'm going to have a grid ready for that light. So basically, I don't have to take the modifier off. I can just basically close it down. I don't know if you can see that. But basically, I just kind of folded it down, left it on there. Now, what is that doing? Remember we talked about the grid and what that does to prevent things from bouncing off walls and whatnot. So basically, every time you throw a softbox on there, specifically with diffusion, you're basically it's cutting down light because you're having to shoot the light through something. So I just took that diffusion plus the grid away. I think it's double diffuse plus a grid. So that's going to be, I don't know the exact amount of stops that it's taking away. But we can look kind of side by side here, and the image looks a lot different. One thing you have to kind of notice here is with his beard, and I have a really specular brighter light source, you're going to see basically like flyaways in the beard where I didn't see it before. So what I'm going to do, I threw a grid on there. That's going to help a little bit with getting rid of that, getting rid of maybe the background like light. So basically this is with the grid, this is without a grid, just on that background light. what did I say the grid does, or what does it help with? It helps mitigate reflections and bouncing back onto that background light, or back onto the background. So the one on the left here is basically just it's bare bulb. This bare bulb plus a gel. The one on the right here is bare bulb with a little grid on there. I like that a little bit more with this kind of light. You know, I don't mind having a little bit harsher of a kicker light. So let's go ahead and bring down a let's bring down a different background though, right? So let's go ahead and do number 1 here. Let me move that thing before I knock it over.
Different shot, this one.
Let's keep the same shot, yeah. And then we'll do it quick. Let's change here, you know. So I'm gonna basically move myself around to get a different shot. Just because I brought a different background down, yes, it's gonna be a different photo. I kind of want even something different though. So I'm actually going to swing around. How far can I get here? Let's do, I'm gonna come all the way over here. I'm actually gonna have some of this in the shot. So I'm just gonna kind of shoot through this. See how this looks. It's probably gonna look real dumb. If you can't see what it is, and that's okay. I'm also going to change my, I don't usually shoot open aperture in a studio, but for this, I actually kind of want to. So I'm actually gonna bring this around here. Let's do, I'm gonna switch sides. A lot of times when I'm shooting, we'll call this like an actor headshot. He's not an actor, but he could be. Nobody, you don't know that. So basically what I'm gonna do is I like to kind of weight my lights to one side when I'm shooting that kind of a headshot. So I'm gonna basically get around here. I got everything on a stand, and in this case, it's not overly convenient. All right. Come this way just a little bit, right there. So I'm actually going to shoot like into the corner of my room. I know you can't really see me here anymore, but I'm way over. Let's see. I'm way over here. Okay. Here I am. So I'm going to shoot into the corner of my room. I'm just going to take a shot, see what it looks like. The background is very dark and you can't see anything what it is. But I actually want to come over here. Remember I said I don't like to shoot open aperture in the studio. I'm going to. All right, so I went down 2 stops I'm down to 2.8. So that means that everything here needs to go down 2 stops. So I'm just doing it from my let's see. All right, this should be good here. Now what that's going to do now is it's going to start incorporating some of the ambient light in my space into the shot, right? Which is okay because it's not, it can be very subtle. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take away his, I'm going to take away his rim or fill light. I don't feel like adding secondary light here. I'm actually going to bring this back around the front. And webcam cable, I don't want to trip over it. Now in this case, I might normally have him like sit just so I don't have this needs to be a little higher. All right. I didn't raise that higher to like affect the shot at all. I literally raised it higher just so it wasn't covering his face. Sometimes you need to move things around just for little reasons like that. So basically what I did is I took what was his fill light and I moved it and I'm pointing it at the background over there. I just want a little bit of light back there. I think I can raise that up a bit. So I've just got one light on Is that? All right, let's just see. There we go. All right. When in doubt, I'm just going to close this down. And it's not necessarily, it would probably make more sense for it to be behind the background, honestly. But I actually kind of like that. So basically, we're not seeing much at all. We're actually getting reflection from a handful of different things here. I'm going to move this past him because I'm getting a little too much on his nose. So that should help with that. But we're basically getting reflections off that white wall I have over there. All right, cool. So now we have essentially the background's lit up, but you can't really tell what it is, and that's totally okay. So let's bring in just the two background lights here, or the background in the little kicker here. So that one hitting his nose way too much. I'm gonna bring this because I've got a lot of room to work with here. I'm gonna bring this almost right behind his head. Because that is not a good photo, and I'm aware of that. And it's not his fault. All right, so I'm going to turn that power down just a touch there. And let's see, that should be good there. Cool. Now we just bring in the key light. And bring that over a little. I think, yeah, keep kind of looking a little more. That's still kind of your main light there. All right, so I'm going to bring in this B flat. I knew I brought it out for a reason. So one thing that this background light here is doing is it's basically it's the spread of this light is essentially, let me move this camera over a little bit so we can see what I'm doing. All right, so the spread of this light here is, let's just call it, it's this, right? So I can basically flag the light off with a V flat or anything. I'm going to do it with a V flat because I have one sitting here. And basically what it's going to do is it's going to block off any of that. Going to block off any of this light that could potentially hit there. I have to check to see if this is going to be in my shot now. And if it is, I don't think that's okay. So now we've got a lot more. Basically, it's blocking off all of the. Oh, wait, I still got AI crop on. I was like, why is it not looking like I want it to look? So I'm going to go back into here under Tether, and we're going to turn off next capture adjustments, apply AI crop. All right. Let's do this now. Perfect. But it's still doing it. All right. Oh, that's because copy from last. Let's go default. Now it'll work. All right, cool. Now I can kind of play around with it a little bit more. I'm going to zoom in manually just because I want the lens compression. So basically, I'm on a 70 to 200 lens, and if I have it, zoomed out to let's say 70, then it's not going to give me that kind of creamy background that I want. So in this case, chin down just a touch, not that far, right? That's perfect. And cool. I think in theory, I would actually like this light to be not as big. I think it's too soft on his like the size of the modifier is like making his it looks good, but it's not doesn't have that like punchy vibe that I really want. And really quick, we are probably running out of time. Let's see here. Okay, cool. No, Oh, there they are. I was wondering where that went. Like basically the whole thing just disappeared. It was like all it showed was like, oh, you're screen sharing, but that's all you can see. All right, cool. Woo, close one. All right, let me go ahead and run through questions really quickly. That's my fault for not knowing how Zoom works after 5 years of using it. So, all right. All right, so the iPad version, Angela, how you doing? If you're still on, hopefully you're still on. The iPad version is called Capture Pilot. So let me go ahead and um, just come down here. So that's going to be found. Typically, I put it into the Tether tab. So basically, it's going to be down. I added it. So if you don't see it, you can right click and go Add Tool and go Capture Pilot, and that basically adds this tool here, which allows you to put that onto an iPad that your client can see and rate images and color tag, just like that. All right, next question. Yes, Seth, I would call this pistachio. I don't know, it's a little darker than pistachio, probably more olive, honestly. Um, let's see, it says, why does the tether cable sometimes not recognize capture one? Sometimes it says too much power or not enough. That sounds, do you know what type of tether cable you're using? I know I can't actually talk to you right now. It could be a couple things. Depending on the camera you use, I know that Canon had some issues with like basically um, Capture or Tether Tools produced a cable that is a unidirectional cable. So it's their 31-foot tether cable. That's basically it's unidirectional. Let me get off of screen share real quick so you can actually see me here. All right. Okay, cool. Here we are. So basically, this is the new cable to kind of help mitigate that problem. I don't know if that's the type of camera you have. I know that some people had basically the camera didn't know whether to use it for tethering or use it to provide power, which is kind of a funky little thing. So they provided this unidirectional cable that basically one end goes in your camera. If you flip them around, nothing will happen. But basically, this gives you the ability to kind of get around that. But yeah, so that's one way that might help with that. Um, Capture One is subscription based. I think they moved away from perpetual license. That's something where honestly Adorama can probably answer that question because I think they sell subscription. Am I correct there? Or no? There's a couple different options. I know that you used to be able to do perpetual license. I would honestly recommend the subscription more so just because you're going to get the updates as they come in, and they're adding updates constantly. So that's kind of a nice, honestly, just having the ability to do that would be is good. So yeah, so let's see. So yes, I think they've gone full subscription based now, but I do not know. I'm not on the sales team for that, so I can't really speak exactly to that. All right, Brad. Like butterfly and those rim lights are feathered. I am using a lens flare, or I mean, sorry, I'm using a lens hood here to get rid of any flare. Also, if it falls, it won't hopefully won't break the lens. I'm trying to make sure I understand your question. It says, like butterfly lighting, those rim light. Oh yeah, feather rim lights. Yes. So the rim lights were feathered a bit, kind of just at him because I don't want any of the rim lights really to hit his nose. I think that's really distracting. So I wanted to make sure I kind of had him at an angle enough to where it was just providing the rim. So yeah, that was kind of the answer for that. As far as lens flare with those, I don't think I've ever had lens flare when I'm using a softbox just because the light is diffused. If you're using just a bare bulb like this, you'll have a lot more lens flare because the light is a lot more specular, right? So you're gonna have that, it's gonna interact with the lens a bit differently. And I don't even think a lens hood would really get rid of that, honestly. That's just kind of at an angle where it's hitting the elements of your lens. Lens flare is going to basically work differently depending on the lens you have. But yeah, I've never had lens flare in any lens when I'm using a softbox, and then specifically a gridded softbox. So with that one, the grid will help with that a bit too. Really, anything that's kind of basically narrowing the light where it's not just shooting directly into your lens. All right. Is the edge of the octa close to the subject, actually behind the subject? I don't know when you asked that question, but in this case right now, it's basically he's kind of in the bottom. Is basically the bottom corner here is kind of what's hitting him. Feathering the oct or the key light is, in this case, this. As I said before, I think that this, for the look that I was kind of going for, this modifier was a little bit too big. I just didn't really have time to go grab a different one. But a little bit of it was wrapping around him as well, and that was going to hit the background, right? So as you move your light around, less light's going to, I had butterfly light earlier, which is why it was hitting the background a lot more than it is now, because right now this light is basically skirting across that background and just kind of maybe hitting that edge over there. But it's so close to him now that the power of the light's a lot lower, and it's only going so far, and that's kind of the inverse square law again. All right, so if you're just starting out, I would recommend one light. You can always do one light mixed with natural light and get some really, really great shots. 3 is kind of my max, because let's say this: the more you put up, the more you have to put away. So the less lights, the less you got to pack up if you're shooting on location. If I'm in my studio, I will typically maybe go a little crazier, maybe go with more lights. But if you're just starting out, I mean, just learn how to harness natural light. Honestly, in a commercial setting, it's a little bit like, it's hard to do that, because let's say you have a client that is like, oh, we have 30 people coming in and they can only shoot on this one day, and that day happens to be pouring down rain and the light coming through the window is really dim and dark or whatever. I don't want to, that's why I kind of like shooting with artificial lighting, is because it does allow me to kind of take control of that, and I'm not relying on Mother Nature there. So one light to start with. I mean, there's no reason to get like 6 lights set up, right? Because then you're going to have 5 lights you don't know what to do with. So I would start with one and build as you need it. Once you get to a point where like, I really want to create this look with the rim light and that and the other, then maybe start adding. But to start off with, I always say start with one, start simple. There's no reason to kind of overcomplicate things when you don't need to. All right. All right, so the R5 camera. So yeah, I think that's kind of going back to the question of the cable. I think that probably is the issue. I mean, I know that I've never had an issue with that. Just try that cable. Also, if you're running another program that does have tether capabilities, make sure the tethering function is off on that, or that program is closed. Sometimes that will kind of be a little funky. Any filters on the lens? I don't believe so. Actually, yeah, there's a UV haze lens on there, or filter on there. I bought this on Facebook Marketplace, so it's got whatever's on there. But yeah, there is a filter on the lens, but other than that, it's just a standard kind of shouldn't affect the image a ton. But yeah, I think that's all of the questions. And I think we kind of hit right at an hour. So if anybody has any last minute questions they want to drop in there, go for it. Definitely check out Jordan. What is your Instagram? How do they find you?
Jordan Grace Music.
Jordan Grace Music. He's awesome. He's a DJ. He's doing some awesome shows coming up. If you're into EDM at all, check him out. He's a monster in a good way. But anyway, that's pretty much it. Time flies. My Instagram is Readylight Media. Nextlevelworkshops.com is how you can find me on the internet. And YouTube is Readylight Media as well. So I'm more active on Instagram, quite frankly, but yeah, we can you can find me on Instagram. Nextlevelworkshops.com though is kind of my forum page where I trying to build a little community there. So check that out. There's a free lighting guide on there. Also, if you have questions or anything like that, reach out to me. I know that like when I'm kind of just talking to myself to my camera here, I'm just kind of going at my own pace. But if you have specific questions, find me on the internet, find me on Instagram, head over to nextlevelworkshops.com, ask a question. There is like a forum like you can join and I'm trying to kind of build that up. So if you have a question, go in there, ask it, shoot me an email, anything like that. But yeah, that's I can give you I can type in the Zoom chat if you want that specifically. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Cool. Yeah, that would have taken me too long to do. But anyway, again, I thank you guys for having me. Big thanks to Jordan for helping out. And again, if you have questions, let me know. Go check out Capture One. I know there is so much that you can do with it, and I barely scratched the surface of everything this program can do. But it is a really incredible program. And the thing with choosing a program like this is, you know, it's supposed to get you from point A to point B a lot quicker. Workflow is a funky little thing because you can't really teach workflow. You can kind of teach what works for you, but at the end of the day, like my brain is a little different than your brain. So what I might do might not be the exact same thing that you might do. So hopefully you took a little something out of this. And again, if you have questions about the program, let me know. If I don't know the answer, I can point you in the direction of somebody that does. But yeah, I had a blast. Happy New Year to everyone. This is my last job of 2024. So heading into 2025, hitting the ground running. So, but yeah, and I'll be at Imaging USA, hopefully at the Adorama booth. So come say hey. And yeah, I think that ought to do it. But head over to nextlevelworkshops.com, join the forum, and we'll connect. And I think that's it. How do I leave?